Good evening and welcome to the Gilroy Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting. ¿Hay alguien que necesita intérprete para la Junta? This meeting is being recorded and broadcast. Images and sounds may be captured of those attending the meeting. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Glenview Elementary School.
Good evening. My name is Christine Vasquez. I'm the principal of Glenview, and I want to introduce you to my family. Just say who you are, and then you can come over here.
Hi, my name is Joanna.
My name is Jaylene.
My name is Natalie.
My name is Gabriella.
My name is Theo.
Who's going to do that? Who's going to start it? You feel comfortable? Okay. Please begin. Yeah.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you very much. This brings, no, it doesn't. Next, item 2B, approval of agenda. I will entertain a motion. Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. This brings us to the reason I suspect most of you are here, recognitions. Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Welcome, everybody. This is always a special time on our board agenda when we have an opportunity to recognize some of our most outstanding students in the district, and we're very proud of all of them. Throughout the year, we do this where we recognize 2 or 3 schools at a meeting. Obviously, you can see why we can only do 2 or 3 schools at a meeting. So tonight, we're pleased to recognize students from El Roble and Los Animas Elementary Schools and Brownell Middle School, who have received the highest possible score on the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress Test, which we call CASP, in English Language Arts and or Math. There are 51 students being recognized tonight. Wow, that's a lot of students from those 3 schools. We're in our 5th year of CASP testing, and this test requires students to explain how they solve problems, think critically, and write analytically. I've seen a lot of the problems at all the grade levels, and I think most of us would have trouble performing the task. They're that difficult. This year, 83 students district-wide earned the highest possible score on the English Language Arts section of the test. 56 of our students district-wide earned the highest possible score on the math test. And we have 45 students in the district who achieved the highest possible score on both tests. As a district, we are very proud of these students for this accomplishment, and we're really excited to honor them this evening. So I'd like to invite, I already have 2 of them up here, David.
We're going to do El Roble first.
Okay, so El Roble, Scott Otteson, the principal, will introduce each of the students from El Roble.
Melanie, tell us what to do.
Do we have the list?
Yes.
Hold on. 1 second.
Make sure they're in the right order. Yep. All right. Camila Narbajo. We're going to stay there.
Harlan Simmons. And our last 2 are 2 of our math superstars, math club winners, Kiara Prophet and Charlie Imerson.
Scott. Where should we go?
Alright, everybody, smile, 1, 2, 3, look at me, and then you can look at moms and dads. Okay, moms and dads, you can come up and take photos. I'll get out of your way.
Feel free to come up.
Yeah, come all the way up. It's okay.
So here's your example for the rest of you. I followed directions very well. That's where she gets it from.
Students from Las Animas, can you bring in the students from Las Animas, please? Thank you. Okay, we are pleased to recognize our first student for top scoring in English Language Arts, Erin Cardenas Sarate. In mathematics, we have Isaac Heitman. In mathematics as well, we have Karina Hogue.
And this way.
Perfect, thank you. 1, 2, 3, smile. Smile, guys. Oh, you look good. Moms and dads, your turn.
Yeah. Do you want to just read them off?
Yeah, let's go.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, from Brownell School, we're going to start. Oh, my name is Mike Nebesnik. I'm the assistant principal of Brownell School.
And I'm Dave Labrante. I'm the principal of Brownell.
And we're going to start with those who received the perfect score in English Language Arts. Christiana Alexa Claire Axon. Alfredo Alfaro. Evan Blakely. There's going to be some that aren't here, though. Okay. Jackson Burge. Julia Finucane. Thank you. Thank you. Michael Jimenez III. Evelyn Lutit. Paola Markey Molina. Chloe Moncrief Chan. Zoe Okeri. Leanne Panfil. Avani Rai. Melanie Reynolds. Mia Romo. Emma Santos. Jordan Silva. Cougar Smith. Zara Tinti. Mireya Torres. Aaron Van Kerkwick. Jana Waba. Jack Zakowski. And that completes our English language arts. We are now going on to mathematics, perfect score. Samuel Bloyer. They don't have it. We'll find it. Okay, we're going to go on. Caitlin Gonzaga. Addison Hulbert. Madison Kradovsky. Madison Pearson. Nicholas Ragasa. Ella Thushmarillo. And our final mathematics is Dominic Vu. Now for the amazing feat of not only scoring perfect in English language arts, but also mathematics. Kiara Boisu. Elena Finucane. Joshua Jang. Zaya Motley Homich. Eric Palmer. Alethea Pang. And our final award recipient, Alice Vu. Well, okay. Who's here?
Where's your map?
Here it is.
All you're in the back.
I'll wait.
There you go. Good job, guys.
We have one more. Okay, students, hold on one second. For English language arts, Aurelia Maxwell. Wow, that's a big group. Oh, wow.
Come on in.
I'm a short person.
That's a big group.
Okay, Bruins, you're going to look at me. Do not look at any other adult in this room except me. And then you need to look at, okay?
We're going to smile for a long, long time, so get ready.
All right, friends. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, Trustee Diaz is going to take a photo.
Okay, 1, 2.
All right, Mommy.
All right, parents, go.
Keep smiling.
No blinking, of course. How I blink, take that one over. That's crazy. Oh my God. Don't think about you. Stop thinking about it. $50 more. Or you've lost focus. Great job. Now get out. What's a Bruin?
Always a Bruin. Okay.
Good job, everybody.
Thank you for helping out. You did? Oh, this goes up.
You're all welcome to stay.
See, cleared up pretty good.
everybody doing?
Hi.
I'm wonderful. And I get a new school. Right.
All right.
Bring your gavel. Oh, man.
All right, it's time to move on with our meeting.
Try it again, James.
Have a continue on. See you later.
Congratulations. Okay, that concludes item 5C, bringing us to item 5D, general public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any item or any issues within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board that is not listed on this agenda. No action can be taken on an item not on the agenda at this time, but may be referred to the administration or put on a future agenda. Members of the public may also address the board on an agenda item before or during the board's consideration of that item. We have one public comment card this evening. Michelle Nelson. Hello. Please report to the mic.
Just to support. Should I wait for people to come in?
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Going once, going twice. Ms. Nelson.
Hi. May I ask for your indulgence for about 4 minutes?
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Good evening, members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Flores. My name is Michelle Nelson, and I am a former employee of the Gilroy Unified School District. I retired in June of 2019 after serving for 39 years. 12 of those years were spent fulfilling the duties as the president of the Gilroy Teachers Association, and I also served as a member or the lead of the GTA negotiating team for more than 2 decades. As such, I had many opportunities to work with all the administrators and certificated staff. While I am retired, I still keep an ear to the ground, and occasionally news comes to me via the grapevine. Not too long ago, I learned that Sylvia Reyes, principal of Los Alamos, had been placed on administrative leave. Well, I was a little surprised. Most of the surprise was that it had taken so long. Allow me to explain. In my long tenure as GTA president, I had occasion to visit Los Alamos, the old and the new, many times. After representing many teachers, I learned that Ms. Reyes' management style included intimidation and harassment, especially toward the more vulnerable members of her staff, in other words, the temporary and probationary employees. She was also skilled at the Divide and Conquer School of Management and had a core group of supporters at the school who would leap to her defense at the first sign of dissent. This core group was small but very effective and very vocal. Through the years, many other teachers at the school left at the first opportunity. I referred to them as the Los Alamos refugees. Many of them to this day are still hesitant to speak of their experiences under Mrs. Reyes. While I was still president, I had asked one of them, a highly respected member of the GUSD team, to support me in a complaint I wanted to make, and she declined. She said she just couldn't do it and needed to move on. Another GUSD staff member, whose duties included working with new teachers, shared her concerns with me about how Ms. Reyes was treating those teachers, but declined to submit anything in writing. This was the problem I faced over and over again, that the teachers who had managed to escape were so traumatized and fearful that they could not bring themselves to join GTA in making the case that Mrs. Reyes' style was detrimental to the morale of the staff and ultimately to the students. But Mrs. Reyes' style and approach to her staff was no secret. GTA repeatedly pointed out to GUSD management that the turnover at Los Alamos School was the highest in the district, but that didn't seem to matter. No one disputes the fact that Ms. Reyes was a hard worker. The problem was she expected her staff to devote every waking moment to the job. There were many times that teachers complained that Ms. Reyes had, once again, added something to the calendar that increased their duties and time on the job. Although many teachers complained that the expectations that Ms. Reyes imposed had a deleterious effect on their physical and emotional health, and even their marriages and family life, they still would not complain in writing. One of my predecessors as GTA president worked closely with HR to address the extreme expectations that Ms. Reyes had of her staff. Were they expectations or requirements? To what extent would they be used in an employee's evaluation? One expectation ran directly counter to what Ms. Dr. Flores had specified could not be used in any unit member's evaluation, but Ms. Reyes tried, because that's who she is. There was a particular incident that I'm going to email you about later because I think it's too sensitive to bring to public communication. But for that particular incident, I was so frustrated that a district human resources official, who's since retired, assured me that eventually Ms. Reyes would be held accountable because she would do something else in the future that was bad, because that's just who she was. It was the old, a leopard doesn't change its spots. I was also going to address the DI program and problems with the DI program and the preferential treatment given to certain students, but I'll hold that. In closing, I would like to comment on what one of the parents at the previous board meeting said when she characterized the atmosphere as having healthy ups and downs of a workplace, but it was not hostile. I respectfully disagree. The atmosphere was not healthy, and more often than not, it was definitely hostile. If you would like more information, including ways in which Ms. Reyes violated board policy, education code, the collective bargaining agreement, or the Educational Employment Relations Act,
wrap it up, please.
Feel free to contact me. I expect that the current employees who are taking part in the investigation or who have already been interviewed are probably under some confidentiality agreement, but I'm not. And I could give you the names of other retirees who have first-hand knowledge of the management style of Mrs. Reyes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This brings us to item 4E, report of action taken in closed session. On the matter of removal, suspension, expulsion of a student, there are 3 cases. We will begin with case number 2020-09.
Move to expel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye. Abstain.
Thank you. Okay. On case matter 2020-10,
Move to expel.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
Abstain?
I abstain.
The motion passes 511. Okay. Is there a further motion on this?
Move to suspend the expulsion.
Second.
We have a motion to suspend. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain.
I abstain.
Case number 2020-11. I will entertain a motion.
Move to expel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain.
I abstain.
Is there further action on this?
Move to suspend the expulsion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain.
I abstain.
Thank you. And there is no further reportable action from closed session. Next up, the Student Board Member Report. Ms. Dosange.
Okay, so hello and good evening to everybody. My name is Shireen Desange, and today we'll be presenting the report on both Gilroy High School and Solorzano Middle School. Is it not going to go? Yeah, I don't think it's... Okay. Okay, so starting with Solorzano, on the right-hand side were two pictures taken from their College Journey Day. On College Journey Day, members from the community and the ASMS staff showed their college journeys with the students. The two pictures in the middle are from their migrant night at the Arturo Ochoa Migrant Camp. It was a family night that had delicious food, interactive games, and prizes. On the bottom left-hand side is a picture from their California college presentations. Site counselors Mrs. Ramon and Mrs. Garcia did classroom presentations. 8th grade's focus was an interest inventory, and 6th and 7th grade focus was on learning styles. And getting to the picture on the upper left-hand corner, CJSF students earned community service hours by setting up and passing out food to Gilroy families. And moving on to Gilroy High School. Oops, oh, this one. Okay, so it looks a little crazy, but... Okay, so moving on to Gilroy High School, our homecoming week was about a month ago, and this year it was definitely a success in Spirit Days. Many students participated and said that they really enjoyed getting together with groups and getting to dress up in costumes and come to school. So on the right-hand side is our class floats. We have the freshman float, which was on top, theme was Battleship. Sophomores had Monopoly, juniors had the Game of Life, and seniors had Candyland. In the middle are some pictures from our homecoming dance. The tables had a variety of board games, and we had arcade games there as well. And next, on the bottom left-hand side, I skipped a page, sorry. And on the left-hand side is a picture from some of our Spirit Days. We had the group one where it was like Scrabble. We kind of tried to have every Spirit Day based off of board games, which was really successful, and a lot of people enjoyed getting to dress up and take pictures. Okay. And then on this page, so for the bottom left-hand side is students getting bagels from our honor roll brunch. And on top of that is a picture from our field hockey team's group picture. It was a great season for most of all our fall sports. Cross country, field hockey, water polo, and volleyball all made it into CCS. Girls golf finished their season with first place in their league. And girls tennis ended on November 4th. Sarah Doyle, who was also a junior at our school, formed a rugby club, which has started off with a great record and many students who are willing to play, and they're really excited about it. And also, the pictures in the middle are from Rock the Mock and our homecoming and rally game. So this year, our Rock the Mock went great. Many students left the workshops with confidence and are ready to apply for a job. The rally this year was filled with energy, and our Mustang Marty riled everyone up. It was great. And many I read that. And okay, so at our homecoming game, royalty was announced, and everyone was ready for the dance the next day. And last but not least, the two pictures on the right-hand side are from our homecoming parade. Sports teams, clubs, royalty, and ASB officers went down the streets tossing candy into the crowds. Everyone was smiling, and it was a really great time. And we also recently had a blood drive last Saturday, which went very successful. And then, and then coming up, we have our Mustang Classic Tournament, which is the girls' basketball. We have our winter choir concert, a band concert, the Bob Hagan Tournament, which is boys' basketball, and we have finals coming up. And yeah, with that being said, that concludes my report on both schools. Thank you.
Excellent job. Thank you very much. Okay, this brings us to the consent agenda. We are going to pull item F for discussion, but I will entertain a motion. We're not on the consent agenda at all. This brings us to the Superintendents Report. Dr. Flores.
First time you've done that? My report is never as interesting as the students, unfortunately. Anyway, I also have a picture of Rock the Mock. because it's one of my favorite events of the year. Last time I told you about Christopher High. This time we were at Gilroy High. At both schools, we had over 40 community members participate in the mock interviews, which I just love. The workshops are also put together by members of our community, and so it's a great day on both sides of the table, because our students get to practice important skills to acquire a job, and actually they later, many of them are hired. We have a job fair after Rock the Mock, and we had about 10 employers there this year, and a bunch of our kids get hired every year. Last year, over 50 were hired for seasonal jobs, so it pays off. But it's great from the perspective of the community members, because they get to come to our two high schools, talk to real adolescents who are doing very well in our schools, and they always leave so impressed. I really love the event. I appreciate the board members that participated. We had several that were there both days, and I really appreciate that. I always have lots of meetings every month. This month's superintendent's meeting, we are reviewing a special education study that's been done county-wide, was done by School Services of California, and it was first presented to the Superintendents Association. And additionally, we had a study that was conducted about the possibility of all the SELPAs, special education local plan areas. Our plan area includes 14 districts, but there are 30 districts in the county, and we have a number of SELPAs. So there's a study that's being conducted right now, the possibility of merging all the SELPAs. So we have a follow-up meeting on that coming up in January. Of course, we have principals meetings, lots of meetings every month, Rotary. One thing that is unusual, that has never happened in our district until today, last Friday we were contacted by the UCSF Trauma Recovery Center asking, because there'd just been a school shooting, and they've supported us back in the fall after our own shooting. They thought there might be a need for some follow-up with people in our district. And even though it was very short notice, my initial thought was, this is 5 or 6 on Friday. I'm like, we can't do it. Next Thursday, we have so much going on this week. We have parent conferences. But then I thought about it over the weekend and said, whoever wants to come is going to come, and they're going to be there for a reason. So we did it, and we had over 30 Gilroy Unified staff here today in this room with 2 clinical therapists who came and talked about the impact of trauma, specifically, of course, shootings on our youth and on our staff, gave some suggestions on how to deal with things that might be surfacing now, because their research has shown that every time there's another shooting, it triggers things and I'm sure people in this room, it did for me when I was watching Saugus High School's shooting a couple weeks ago. Definitely triggered some things for me. I'm sure it does for everybody in this room. So it was great. They came down from San Francisco, hour-and-a-half workshop, and I think a lot of people really benefited from the workshop, and they're going to continue working with us as they already have. And after that, in fact, I had to leave it to go over to Mount Madonna for their annual Thanksgiving feast, which I go every year. I love it. It's just a great event where a Thanksgiving meal is served to all the students at Mount Madonna and the staff, and some of us always go over. 4 of us went over today for the Thanksgiving feast. It was a day early. I hope everybody caught that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
It's on my calendar for tomorrow.
It's always on Friday. I don't know why they changed
There might be
it
leftovers
to Thursday.
tomorrow if you show.
Yeah, they changed the date.
Yeah, we took care of the leftovers.
And as I mentioned last time, I finished all my fall visits, and we've started our APS visits. So on the screen are the ones that have been conducted. I always do them by grade level. So we've started on the middle school. We'll be moving on to elementary. On the APS visits, the whole Ed Services team and I go. We use the school's walkthrough tool, which we started the walkthrough tool. Now every school has modified it and improved it, and it's really cool to see how the school uses the instrument to focus on their priorities and their goals. And so we're in the middle of it. It takes a huge chunk of our time for all of us to go over to every school, 15 schools, and do this, but it's well worth it. We give the principal feedback, literally using a screen to show them the results, and then they they use that to talk to their staff about what we saw during the visit. And most of the schools, all of the schools now are using the tool on their own or with Deb and Kathleen for additional visits. So it's not just a one-shot deal now, once a year, it's all year. And I personally think it's a model among school districts for, and then on top of it, you heard tonight, the elementary principals are doing walkthroughs with each other. I'm sure that happens even at secondary level some, so it's a really effective process. We have a lot of events coming up before the break, Christmas break or winter break. So all of us will be going, as we do every year, to the California School Board Association Conference. This year it's in San Diego, and it's a great conference where board members learn so many things that they would never have the opportunity to learn. It's professional development. It's well worth our time to go 3-4 days. And then, of course, we've got a lot of special events coming up, which I'll try to make as many as I can. And I'm sure you will, too. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Why don't we try item 7 now? Okay, this is the consent agenda. Item F has been pulled for discussion, but I will entertain a motion on items A through E and G.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Can I just make a comment on G? I don't usually comment on the consent agenda, but
You may.
I wanted to let you know that there are 4 districts in the CalSOAP consortium, and all 4 of the districts will be funding that cost of the audit, not just our district. I didn't put that in the item, but I wanted you to know that.
Thank you. Appreciate helping defray the costs. Okay, item 7F. Trustee Good, would you like?
Yeah, I asked that this item be pulled because the agreement here doesn't seem to go with anything. It looks like they pulled something from some other agreement that had nothing to do with what we're agreeing to. For example, you can just look at paragraph number 3, conflicts of interest. I don't think anybody could represent in this district that they understand what it means, or B, that we can comply with it.
Does anyone from Cabinet know whose item this is? Anna's? Good.
And I submitted this information in advance, and I didn't get a response, so
Ooh,
I don't intend
I hope
to
that didn't
support
write
it.
down with me.
So this is in agreement with the Department of Family and Children Services. It was reviewed by our attorneys, and it is to assist, some of the families that are at-risk families at some of our schools. So it's also in conjunction and in support by District Attorney Flores.
The idea and the program is great, but this contract is garbage.
Right. Okay. And we've gone back and forth. We've been working on this since last February.
Yeah, but this is the first time the board has seen it. So
Right.
could you send us those concerns in writing, and we'll work on it some more?
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
the problem is MOU, general terms and conditions. They don't apply to none of this applies to the purpose or the subject matter of the contract. I don't know where they got it from, but it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to consult with our legal counsel again. I know they've already been involved a couple of times. We've been trying to get this off the ground for a while. That doesn't mean we can't delay it till the next board meeting.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I still ask for a motion on this?
You can, if someone wants to make one, sure.
Is the board fine with delaying this to the next meeting?
Good.
We have consensus on that. Okay, this brings us to item 8A, the Gilroy Teachers Association new proposals for negotiations of the successor collective bargaining agreement with GUSD. Members of hello.
Good evening, Dr. Flores. That might be a little loud.
Hot mic.
Little. My first time. Good evening, Dr. Flores, Board President Pace, members of the board. My name is Eric Davis. I teach social studies and am an instructional specialist at Mount Madonna Continuation High School. I am also the lead negotiator for GTA for the upcoming round of bargaining. I'm here tonight, GTA is here tonight to notify the district that GTA intends to commence negotiations of a successor collective bargaining agreement for the 2020-21 school year. In the board packet, you can find the list of articles that GTA is planning to open with brief descriptions for each article. And I know it looks long, but it is not the entire contract. It's a little more than half. GTA looks forward to collaborating with the district to improve the safety and learning conditions of teachers and students, as well as ensure the hiring and retention of high-quality educators. Are there any questions?
Board, you have questions? Mike. Trustee Diaz.
I do. I'm glad to see this. One of the things that I haven't seen the rest of the contract or the requests that are being made, but I see these. But in these, what I don't see is something like related to financial wellness or literacy, which I think can be really important to any employee for that matter. But when we have a lot of people that are coming out of college, dealing with college loans, midlife, sending kids off to college and nearing retirement. So at all levels, we can all be able to help from financial literacy. So that's something that I'd like to see, and just wellness packages in general. It might fall under HR, but
this is the GTA's negotiation proposal to us.
Yep.
If that's something you wanted to see and it fit within the contract language, then that's something the district could propose. But this is their proposal to us.
Yeah, I see what's here, and that looks fine and all. But if that's something that falls under that, or something that you guys can propose, that'd be great to see. But if it's something that we propose from our end, then that's something that we can look into as well.
Again, it has to, and you know the contract, by the way, is online. So that's the best way to access it. That's how I access it now rather than a hard copy.
Yeah,
then I know I have the current one. So we used to do it the hard way with Michelle and Kim reading through it and proofreading it. But anyway, that's something we can talk about when we're discussing our proposal.
Sure.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next, item 8B, Resolution 1920-12, Schools and Communities First Funding Initiative. Ms. Hack.
Okay, great, thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Flores, Board President Pace, and esteemed board members. My name is Lindsay Hack, and I'm your GTA president. I have Dana Wolf with me up here, and William Chavez is hiding in the audience, secretary and vice president. I appreciate this opportunity tonight to share information regarding schools and communities first. This initiative is in the process of being added to the 2020 ballot, and it directly impacts our school funding. So I felt it was important for you all to hear about it. So as we know, California is a state of major contradictions. We have incredible wealth, with nearly 7% of California residents being millionaires, and yet we also are 41st in student spending, which leaves us behind Texas and Oklahoma. If you look currently in Santa Clara County for 2019, a family of 4 is considered low income with a household income of $104,000. So how did we get here? Thank you. In 1978, California voters passed Proposition 13, which reformed how property taxes were calculated. It was presented as a benefit for homeowners, specifically so grandma could keep her house and pay the same amount of taxes, right? It was a fixed tax rate. However, the proponents of Prop 13 forgot to emphasize, while telling everybody about it, the enormous benefit it also had to corporations. In that, the biggest winners became those corporations because they didn't pay their fair share, and they continue to not pay their fair share. Over $150 billion has been lost from our communities over the past 40 years because of that difference. Property taxes are the funds for all public services that we rely on. And after Prop 13, the total pie of public resources for those services has shrunk. Prior to Prop 13, homeowners and corporations contributed about 50-50. At this point today, homeowners are contributing 70% of the property taxes, or the total resources, excuse me. And so there's questions with that, right? Why is it split so unevenly when all of these houses are being sold and even corporations are still buying land? So as we know, let me skip to this one. something has to change because it's not working for us, right? We do this every year with our negotiations and everything else. We need more funding for schools. So the initiative for California Schools Local Communities and Funding Act, what it will do is reform those loopholes provided by Prop 13. In that, the distribution of those funds, it should restore about $11 billion every year for schools and other public services like police departments, fire departments, parks, libraries, hospitals. So schools and communities first has a larger scope in that it's schools, but also all other community agencies, right, or community services. With that additional funding, and key word, Alvaro, additional funding, half of the distribution for that is that half of the funding is placed in a special state fund for education and distributed by the LCFF guidelines that we currently have. The remaining half of that is distributed based on current city and county property tax guidelines, and that's what goes to the other local services like hospitals, police departments, fire departments, etc. Additionally, the measure provides that this is additional funding for schools and those services. It is not to get swept in and replace something else. This is to be additional. This does not affect homeowners. It would create like a split roll tax, right, where homeowners are taxed in one way and then corporation, the assessment is different. Majority of states already have systems like this. California is one of the rare states that has the same tax assessment for commercial properties as residential properties. It also provides exemptions for small businesses. It eliminates the personal property tax and exempts owner-operated small businesses that own land valued at $2 million or less. It also continues the provisions in the current Prop 13 with agricultural land. And so none of those new funding resources that we're talking about have anything to do with revenue from agricultural land. And that's all in your board packet is laid out. So it also, for new corporations and new businesses, it levels that playing field because many of these old corporations have this land and they just keep adding and buying property around it, but they're paying the old assessment price. So new corporations are companies that are buying commercial property are competing with that, right? So their cost then is obviously much higher in order to run their business than some of these older ones. Also within the fund, the act, it requires accountability. So they're like all of things that we do, right? There's an annual audit and you have to explain everything to the public, where it was spent, and then there's also the ability for them to weigh in. So who pays? Only a fraction of the wealthiest corporations will be paying for this. There's corporations in our area like Chevron who are currently retaining over $100 million annually because of their assessment rate. IBM, who just up here in South San Jose, whose property is assessed at 50 cents a square foot, versus Adobe that just bought property in downtown San Jose for $650 a square foot. There's also Disneyland and the Staples Center and all of these other large corporations with that commercial property. $8.8 billion of the $11 billion lost resources come from just 8% of the wealthiest landlords here in California. And all of them have property valued over $5 million. So again, who doesn't pay are the homeowners, apartment owners, small businesses, ag land, and over half of the businesses that are already assessed at a current market rate. So what does this do for us, right? So the city of Gilroy alone, and these numbers are not in here or your board packet, but if you'd like the information, I can give that to you. Please let me know. It took a little bit to get it. So the city of Gilroy alone would receive an additional $2 million of funding a year. Based on current LCFF allocation, Santa Clara County Office of Ed would receive an additional $219 million annually. That is an estimate of about 15,000 to 20,000 per classroom every year of additional funding.
Can I ask a question? How does that transfer, how does that help Gilroy Unified? If the County Office of Education gets that money?
Then it's split up. So the same way that it's currently split through the LCFF funds and because it depends on, there's 5 million things I can tell you, I'll show you. But depending on, would be the same percentage. Whatever percent of LCFF funds or what we're allocated from the Santa Clara County office, that's what comes to us. The same exact percentage of that. Does that answer the question?
Kind of.
It's just it's now additional funding.
Do we know how it interacts with Prop 98?
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
I mean, 15, 20,000 additional per classroom is pretty clear.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
If it comes to us.
Sure.
Right, if it's property tax, we only get half of our revenue from property tax, and the rest is filled by the state, and I'm curious how those will interact with each other. If we're getting more from local, then are we getting less from the state?
No. So it's additional funding. It's not supposed to change any of that, because by reforming that Prop 13 with those the commercial property tax, basically all of those companies that they're not being reassessed with the current value, that's what's being brought up. So so nothing else should be changing. From all the research I've done, That's what it would look like. And I can bring in other people who have far more knowledge than I do of this. That's their job. But that's what I have learned.
Okay.
Is it's all about additional funding by closing that loophole with commercial property tax.
Twin?
I was just wondering, because how many, if it's let's say 15,000 per classroom, how many classrooms do we have?
A lot.
Yeah. What's the bottom line?
500, over 550
teachers. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
and we have classrooms beyond that, but 550 is safe.
And that 15 to 20,000 per classroom is an estimate. Not all classrooms, some teachers don't have a full classroom, so it would be allocated differently, right? Because it's going to be allocated, I would assume, per student just through ADA and the LCFF and all of those.
There was something similar in the last election, right?
There was. And so they pulled it and rewrote several bits of it.
Okay.
And then now it's back.
Okay. And I see your supporters, the coalition here. Do you see any major groups that are against it?
Yes.
Yeah, you do? Okay.
Yes. So that is my next.
Real estate.
Oops, let me go back there. Yeah, so part of it is the hardest problem with this is that there's a reason that loophole has existed for 40 years. Because those people, all those very, very wealthy individuals do not want that to go away, right? So the opposition has pledged $1 million to fight it. I think the hardest part is that we need to educate our community members and our business owners at what it really looks like, because the opposition is going to say a whole different story. Kind of like they did originally, right, with Prop 13, where they just forgot to mention all of the advantages that the commercial property would have. And so while we have several organizations, there's over 50 organizations and well over 300 endorsements from officials, we still need, and that includes like the Parent Teacher Association, all three of the large teacher associations in California. There's SEIU, there's tons of philanthropic and environmental, there's tons of agencies that are supporting this, as well as school districts all throughout the state. But we need to still do more. I think education is is probably the biggest thing, because people are not going to understand it. A lot of people don't understand what Prop 13 is, period, right? So that's really part of where we need to go, because we need this funding for our schools. I know you all are going to the CSBA conference, and CSBA does have an initiative of their own. It's slightly different. Part of the bigger difference with this is the scope is larger. So this is schools. CSBA, I believe, is just schools, and this is schools, but also communities, police department, fire department, all of those other services. So it's part of the big difference. So while you go, what I'm really asking, so tonight's an information item, and the big ask is that you really talk and use this as a discussion and figure out what CSBA is proposing, what the differences are, and why aren't we doing this together, for one. And then when you come back, I would welcome any questions, and we will be requesting a resolution of support. Are there any other questions? Now I got a little off script, but it's not shocking.
Why would you recommend supporting this as opposed to the other proposition by CSBA, which is just for the schools? Why would you want?
So when I looked, so CSBA is being supported by 3 organizations. Of course, I'm not going to remember what they are right now. There's a community college organization, ASCA, and there's another one.
CSBA.
Yeah, CSBA, AXA.
So it is CSBA. Okay. This is being supported and being rewritten and has a huge coalition supporting it. And part of the reason it was pulled and rewritten was to provide a larger scope, so that it would be more than just schools.
more encompassing.
Mhm.
But, yeah.
Trustee
In order to garner more support for that.
So 3 months ago, I sit on the, what is that called? The Government Relations Committee for the Chamber. And a gentleman from the Business Roundtable came and spoke to the Chamber about the full and fair funding, the CSBA one. And they both raise about $12 billion a year. And so when I saw that this was on the agenda, I did a little homework. The number one, it's not $1 million. The Business Roundtable already has a war chest of $125 million to defeat anything regarding Prop 13, either the CSBA or the CTA one.
CSBA's is not specifically a change to Prop 13.
It is a split roll.
It is?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It's my understanding is it is. So, and their argument, which really bothered me, I'm going to say that politely, was you better watch out because this is a slippery slope. And once they come after the business and the commercial, residential is right behind. That's exactly what he said. So I said to him, I take issue with the fear mongering. I'm sorry, I don't, believe in that. And I understand that you have a war chest of $125 million. I think you will do just fine with your fear mongering on the airwaves. And I smiled nicely, and he was not impressed and doesn't really care because they, I think, really absolutely believe, and probably rightfully so. And so I'm guessing this coalition, yeah, it's less money, but it has a higher percentage or a higher chance of passing as opposed to all the money going. We share the money, we share the support going in. It's either that or nothing. Also, prior to 1978, the state of California was in the top 5 in per pupil spending. Post Prop 13, we are now 41st. Although I just read something that said we're 38th. Ooh, how exciting is that? So one of the things that I get really frustrated about, I have yet to watch the video of these meetings, I'm sorry, but if those of you who do, I generally say something about funding because we sit here, as you sunshine your requests and for negotiations, we sit here and quibble over pennies that we get from Sacramento when we're 41st. Right. And it's really, really sad. So we have to sit here and cut up a pie that is getting increasingly smaller and smaller and smaller. And that pie needs to increase, and that needs to come from Sacramento. And we need to build a coalition. Once upon a time, we had an education coalition where all the groups like this got together and supported something. If we don't do that, this will go down in flames again. So I'm curious to see, I need to know the difference between the CSBA full and fair funding and this one, and I'll support whichever one has a better chance of passing. Frankly.
My guess is there will be workshops at CSBA.
Absolutely.
So we'll learn a lot.
I'm looking forward to that.
My understanding is they both have qualified for the ballot?
I know CSBA has. That qualified back in August. So.
Right.
This one is not on the ballot yet.
Right. It was pulled.
Right.
Well, Prop 13 has been attacked for 40 years.
Sure.
Right.
Pat, you know what? You have to go say that in the mic. Sorry.
They can't because it's being recorded.
Because it's being recorded.
So that's part. So it was pulled from the last ballot because of that, in order to garner additional support and to make it a stronger initiative. So that is why it was there, and so it's in the process of.
My only concern
qualifying.
is that it becomes too watered down and doesn't have any meaning. That would be my concern. That we have, are so worried about it passing and have so many people in the boat that the boat sinks. You know what I mean? So, and I haven't read it and I haven't looked at it, but we need to do something. Absolutely.
This is the first credible chink in Prop 13 in ever, as far as I
40
can tell.
years?
Yeah.
Well, and the data show, I mean, it's pretty significant when you see where we were as far as funding, and then where, and how, you can see the decline, and that is what changed.
Trustee Good.
That's some interesting, go ahead.
The thing is, this is either this one or the CSBA one, the whole idea of making business pay their fair share, great, I support it. We'll have to see what's the best scenario. But that's this much of the puzzle.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much money the state gets. They choose to spend it on things other than education. For example, we're all paying a lot more for gasoline now.
Right.
We're all paying a lot more for vehicle registration. Anyone that travels out of state is amazed because our roads are the worst in the nation. But we pay double for gas, and in some cases 1,000% more vehicle registration. It's because the people in Sacramento choose to spend on other things other than roadways and other than education.
Right.
They don't care. We need to make them care.
Right, and that was another reason it was pulled in reading that, was to tighten up all of that and make sure that it was additional funding that goes directly to those services. Because there is such distrust.
Right.
Rightfully so.
What's the deadline for getting it on the ballot? Yeah.
Soon.
Right. February. So February or March. We're currently collecting signatures for petitions if anybody would like to sign one. Any other questions?
Any further discussion?
Go education.
I mean, the only comment I have is just that Prop 13 had a lot of undesirable side effects, and that was one of them. And it doesn't, we don't pay taxes at that rate. It just capped the max that real estate could be appraised or raised every year, which was 2%.
Right.
The other thing that I think it has some effects now is also housing, because then people aren't willing to leave their house because they've already established that low base rate.
Right.
But this doesn't change that. This does not affect property
No.
owners,
Exactly.
homeowners. This only affects commercial and
Right.
So
industrial.
Slippery slope, you know, Business Roundtable says you better watch out.
But commercial is also considered landlords, right? Even
No.
No.
There's a limit.
There's a limit,
Right. So
okay.
kind of your general landlord, no. Now if you're
Apartment buildings?
no, right. It's all protected within that.
Okay. Yeah.
Now I'm assuming if you own property over $5 million,
It doesn't take much to get an apartment building over $5 million.
but the assessed value. So those people, the people who have property buildings that they purchased in 1960, they still own.
Yeah.
And the value, what it would be currently assessed. My assumption, don't fact check me on this one,
yeah.
or you should fact check me on this one, I guess, is that could be assessed
See, things like that
because
already
it's
get
over a
rid of
certain
things.
amount.
Yeah.
But your regular kind of small business owner who owns
Fewer than 2 units.
Yeah.
Yes, your large apartment complexes, that's going to go right down to the renters. They're the ones who are going to be paying it, not businesses.
It's true.
Right?
potential. I mean, there are definitely you can go further and further, and I have read so many things that it's all kind of mushy, but I can check into that and address it because I do believe that there was something in there specifically addressing that. Because the point is to not affect the community members, right?
To go for the big hitters.
Right.
Yeah.
For that very small percent.
No, because it's a reassessment. How about large ag? I know there's some mega farmers who own tens of thousands of acres worth hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars. Why are they immune?
So there is, in the board packet, there is a specific flyer on ag land. I brought it because I thought I might get a question. And so it is, there is a limit here, and there's different things. It depends on what you own. But it says under the reform ag land will continue to benefit from existing laws. If it goes further, commercial and industrial structures on the ag land would be taxed at a fair market value if it's over a certain amount. If it's under $3 million, then it's not. So it depends on, there's specifics in there.
Okay.
And that was all part of the rewriting to tighten everything up. So,
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation,
thank you.
and we will definitely take this under consideration.
Thank you.
And we will be going to a conference where we can get educated and get some details on the CSBA initiative, too. All right. Where'd my agenda go? Hello, it's time for the Student Services Mid-Year Report. Ms. Polito.
Good evening, President Pace, Vice President Good, trustees, and Dr. Flores. I'm here tonight for going into my third year for an update in the Student Services Department. Oh, my thing isn't going. My little clicker you showed me isn't working. Oh, there we go. Oh. See, I told you I can't do anything right.
Everyone who touches that computer has...
I know, and then he was setting me up on a clicker to make it easier, and then I can't do that either. Just do this one. Okay.
Learning all about
He must have touched it before you
left. Let's hope that curse doesn't come in.
Okay, starting with the population that we serve. So in the previous reports, we are seeing a steady increase in our special education population. So despite the decrease in enrollment, we are still seeing an increase in the special education population. Dr. Flores had discussed, this special education local planning area meeting that she had, and I had myself a meeting yesterday, and all districts are seeing the same amount of growth in their special education population. So, as I've said before, the trends that we're seeing in our department and in our district are not unique to Gilroy Unified, and this is just one of the areas.
Anna, quick question. Are they self-identified, or are they through assessments that you...
Any student that receives special education services has to be identified through assessment through the district.
Okay.
And Anna, what's that total? It looks like 1,600?
It's edging. It's about 1,542.
And that falls like 10%.
We're up about 100 students than we were last year at this time.
Yeah.
So,
but of the total makeup of the school district, it's about 1 in 10. I mean,
it's about we're approaching about 14. Right, it's about 14%.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, and typically, like in my November,
correctly, yeah.
right, in my November reports, we see a little bit of a decline, and that's because of graduations and things like that. And we're up. We're up about 100 students. Okay. One of the things that is, whenever, and I've discussed this before, when we look at our department, we really try to focus in, like I said, on trends. And one of the things that we're going to really try to look at, and we have some kind of hypothesis of why this might be, but the eligibility criteria, the disabilities on this slide, are usually pretty consistent, and we don't see huge jumps. However, in the intellectual disability, over the last few years, and then even from June to November, we've seen a jump. And one of the, and I'll get to this later in the presentation, but some of this could be attributed to and I've spoken to you about, really having the goal of bringing back students that we've served in other settings, such as county programs or non-public schools. And we have worked very hard to transition our students back to our district. So this could be part of it, but we are going to look at that closer because, as you see, we've seen a little bit of a increase, and then in November we've increased by 6 students. Okay, and I highlighted, again, like I said, in the November updates, usually our numbers, we see a little bit of a drop. But as you can see, our speech and language is quite high. And then our autism, which is pretty consistent, but we do have students that, have graduated. And so it's kind of maintaining, so we'll keep an eye on that. Placements and referrals. So again, we really try to serve our students within the school district programs, but occasionally students need a higher level of support. So over the last few years since I've been here, we initially had 6 students that were in residential placements, and typically the students that need a residential placement, what they need cannot be provided in California. So these are students that are generally generally placed in outside of the state. So we've worked again very hard to transition students back and really look at the services and how we're providing them. So as of to date, we do not have any students that require the need of a residential setting.
So, quick question on that too. We approved the residential placement in the last couple months, right? And it looked like that would line up with the June person.
We don't have any
No.
students pending residential placement.
Now, you might be thinking about non-public schools.
Non-public
Oh.
Yes.
Different
Right.
It's a different category.
Right.
Okay.
They don't, typically non-public schools, they don't live there.
Right.
Whereas residential, it's
Right.
24 hours.
And a residential, the students, they're attached to a non-public school, so they will they will receive their education in a non-public school, but they also reside in there. So they need even, care, like around the clock. So again, with the update here, we've been pretty consistent with our students that are in the non-public schools. Again, we're trying to transition students and provide services within our district. So students that, again, need to be provided services in a non-public school, again, present with a disability and need related services that we cannot provide within a district. So again, we always want to try to transition these students back to our school programs, but at the same time, we have to make sure our teachers have the support and training. So we've been working very hard. I'll speak a little bit later in the presentation about the supports that we've worked on to try to make sure that we can provide the services within our district. So from June to November, we have been able to transition students. So they weren't students that the students, when we look at this from the 45 to 39 in county programs, were not students that aged out. The majority of them were students that we were able to bring back to the district. One of the breakdown is how our students are being, the students in the district are receiving their special education services. So the majority of our students, which is a good thing, receive general education with resource. So when I spoke to you in June, I explained that we were identified in program indicator review by the state. And one of the things that we needed to look at, and we were identified, is looking at how our students are being served and if they were being served in the least restrictive environment. So one of our goals, and one of the things we're working on this year, is students who are in a self-contained class. So students who have limited an interaction or experience in the general education class. So we're looking at that. So we continue to really work with preparing our students in our self-contained classes and working with staff and parents to look at the continuum of options, right? We always go from a least restrictive to a more restrictive setting.
This is something that was prompted by the state?
By the state. So all the districts have and it is really aligned with LCAP. So pretty much every single district in California was identified in program indicator review. So we were identified in 4 areas, and one of them was the least restrictive environment. And I have to give us kudos because many of the districts in our SELPA were over with their students who had, so when we say students with general education and a resource, those are students that have services that are less than 50% of their day. Self-contained is more than 50% of their day. And many of the districts in our SELPA were too high in both areas, and we were only in self-contained. So that's a good thing. So our staffing, so when I spoke about it in several other presentations, but we really wanted to increase our own capacity. So again, this year in November, we worked with agencies, and we were actually with speech and language. We actually hired 3 speech and language therapists for direct hires. So we increased the number. So we only have 4 speech and language therapists. We have 1 contracted school psychologist, 2 occupational therapists, 3 teachers. We have 1 teacher vacancy currently. And we added an additional mental health therapist. So as one of the goals, and I spoke to you in June, we've had an increase of students needing mental health services. So the district participates in the LEA, local education agency, Medi-Cal program where we bill for services. So with the revenue from that, we were able to finance an additional mental health therapist to help with the mental health therapy for students across the district, but also to enhance the services in our therapeutic programs. So our related services. Looking at the number of occupational students that receive occupational therapy. So we have decreased, I talked about that in June a little and in the past presentations. One of the factors that we contributed this to is we had to develop a handbook allowing interventions to be provided and actually working with teachers, and then our occupational therapists have worked very hard to work with the general education teachers where if there's a student that might be struggling to give them strategies to work with the students in the classrooms. Speech, we're still pretty steady from June to November. So again, we'll be looking at how the services are being provided. One of the things that we've concentrated since our team has been with the district is looking at how the services are being provided at the high school and post-secondary level. Because again, we're preparing these students to exit into post-secondary, even post-secondary, jobs and programs. And so we want to look at how we're possibly fading out those services and preparing them to be able to function outside of the school setting.
Anna?
Yes.
So regarding speech.
Yes.
On your student population, you had 444 for speech and language. That's for only
That
speech.
is for only. So those are students that meet eligibility under speech and language.
Under only. Okay.
Only. So
and
these are students. Exactly.
Have multiple.
Yes, so these could be a student who maybe is identified under specific learning disability, but as a related service, they have speech. Okay, so we have seen an increase in the number of students that need licensed vocational nursing, but this actually, I view it, and our team views it as a positive, because again, some of the students that would need a higher level of care and might need nursing services in a medically fragile program, we have been able to transition back to the district. So we have a student who we brought back into an elementary school, very significant health needs, but in a general education classroom participating with a full-time LVN, and it's exciting. It's probably the best thing that's happened to me this year. So again, and these things take planning. We worked with the family, we worked with the staff at the school, we worked with the, transitioning him, and it really was about a year in work. We had to have adapted equipment and everything, but the payoff is awesome. Okay, mental health services, I mentioned that a little bit. We're really trying to, build the mental health supports. I've previously talked about, building our internal capacity. So we have really partnered and when able to provide a lot of mental health services more in the general education population, partnering with some of our agencies like Rebecca's and Community Solutions. But we've also limited where we've had to contract with some of these agencies outside for mental health therapy that is under an IEP. So like I said, we've seen an increase of students qualifying, but we were able to bring on that fourth mental health therapist. And then our goals this year, so to increase inclusion opportunities, again, targeting the area that was identified through the state. Continue to provide parent and community outreach, the ongoing professional development, and to collaborate with our SELPA to support our therapeutic classes. So again, I can't say enough about our SELPA and how they support us. So they've helped us with some of the professional development that we provide. When I spoke to you in June, I talked about some enhancements that we wanted to implement in our therapeutic programs, and the SELPA and their support has been monumental. So our inclusion, some of the things that we've done, again, that's our percentage of students that we really need to look at how we are increasing their time. There are students that absolutely need the self-contained and that amount of support, but really looking at it closely because, again, our goal is always to transition a student back to a least restrictive environment. So we have inclusion, the Inclusion Collaborative presented in the November with one of the offerings in our November professional development for teachers. They will be presenting again in our upcoming January. One of the things also that we looked at with our inclusion percentage, and that could possibly be a reason that we were identified, is in our IEPs, the percentage of time general education versus special education wasn't being calculated correctly. So our guru, Tammy Irvine, had worked with, and she did a LRE, so least restrictive environment calculator, for every single school and level. So they just punch in the minutes and it gives them the amount of time. So there shouldn't be any mistakes. So I think that's helped a lot. So we rolled that out this year. And then again, really talking about the legal updates during our district team meetings and principal meetings. Parent and community outreach. So our team was pleased to attend the opening of the Parent Helping Parents. One of our goals is to really develop a working relationship with the Parents Helping Parents. Our department has a relationship with Department of Rehabilitation in San Andreas. And in previous districts, we worked very closely with the Parent Helping Parents in San Jose. And when we were out there, I think it was Monday, we talked about how we can partner for them to offer not only workshops and trainings for parents and our parents, but also for our staff. And then, of course, our parent night, and then working with Melanie to update our student services. Something that needs to be done, but wasn't one of the things that was one of our major priorities, but we would really like to get to that now. Why isn't my... Okay, now I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm pressing the same button. Okay, so these are some of the professional development that we offered. So related to the mental health services and crisis, we have many students who have school refusal or anxiety for school. So we had a speaker that came from the University of Nevada that provided to our principals and other related staff, our psychologists, our mental health therapists, and talked about some of the trends and how to address students who aren't coming to school. I discussed over the last couple years that we have really worked on identifying and implementing multisensory reading interventions. So this year, as of November, not only have we been able to train all our teachers, but the paraeducators requested that they received the same training in the programs, so we were able to do that. One of the things that I'm very excited about is 3 of our employees participated. They went to Sacramento for a week and participated to be certified in therapeutic crisis intervention, but trainer of trainers. So when we've trained our staff, we've had to send them to other districts, we've had to send them to other sites, or SELPA has helped provide it for our staff to be trained. Now, with the 3 employees, we are able to train our own people. So we'll be able to train in de-escalation and if a student has to be restrained, the safest way to be able to restrain a student. So we'll be able to work with, our transportation department has asked for that support, paraeducators. So we're going to be able to do that ongoing because sometimes we needed it, but we'd have to wait till training came up. So we're super excited about that. So I'm thankful for my staff that was able to attend. So it was both our program administrators, Tammy Irvine and Adrian Summers went with one of our behavior specialist, Anthony DeAngelis. So we're very excited about that. So we'll be setting up trainings for our staff in January. And then we had 2 of our teachers that are at SELPA always ask us to select 2 teachers or 2 new teachers to participate in the Pentane, so they've started that. And then our monthly team meetings, we're again focusing on, and I know that was one of the issues that was identified, is looking at our students that are English language learners and also identified as a disability. And I spoke about this a little bit earlier, but our collaboration with SELPA. So we really wanted to enhance our therapeutic classroom. So we've really worked very hard this year with the therapeutic program at the elementary school. So now we have bi-monthly meetings at the elementary level. That's the whole team. So it's the behavior specialists, the therapists, the teachers. Usually it's usually Tammy Irvine, but one of our members of our department attends, and then we have a SELPA representative, and she is she heads the therapeutic support from SELPA. Another thing we're excited about is we have a curriculum, a social emotional curriculum that we're implementing in those programs, but we're also implementing it across the board. We have a program that we also purchased for secondary. And then another thing we're very excited about is on Wednesdays when they have the early out at the elementary school, the paraeducators are participating in training with our behavior specialist on those Wednesdays. And then I already covered about our TCI, our people being trained in TCI. So that's where we're at this time of year.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. Trustee Sayak.
Thank you for a great presentation. I'm just curious, and I don't know if you have an answer to this, but you stated that there's a big increase throughout California of these types of students. Like, do you have an idea of why, or is it because we are better at assessing it, or is it just something in the water?
Right. So when you say different types of students, do you mean special students being I don't know. I think some may be better being assessed. I think that we have students that have increased needs that maybe and again, across the board, looking at how we're interventions that are being implemented. And one of the things that we really are seeing an increase, and it's not even in just California, it's across the country, is mental health. I think we all know personally that mental health is a huge need now. And so students with mental health needs aren't always identified as emotionally disturbed. That's where, OHI kind of sometimes is a catch-all for that, or it's affected in other areas. So if you see the numbers for the mental health, it is up like 50 students since I've been here. And those aren't all students that we house or served in a therapeutic program. Those are students that are in less restrictive programs that might have a disability under learning disability or OHI or anything like that. So I think that. I also think that we have students who, and I've said this before, who are struggling with behavior. We really are, and I know I have said this before, but we are seeing students that have very different needs. I mean, I've been in this for over 20 years, and we have students that have severe behavior needs. We have students that have deficits in just socialization that is leading to behavior needs. So I think if there's any kind of trend, that might be what it is.
Trustee Pacino.
Last spring, when I went up to Sacramento on Ledge Action Day, I did a little research because in my career, ancient history now, we were just under 10%, and I was surprised to see that Gilroy Unified was 13%. So I started looking statewide and nationwide it was just over 13%.
Yes.
So, at 14%, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right.
I have real mixed feelings about the mental health. First of all, I'm thrilled that we have those services for our kids. And what I'm not so thrilled about is our kids need them.
I know.
But I'm glad that we have that. It's been a long time in coming. So in addition to the services that we provide, we still have the agencies.
We do.
And there's a huge need.
There's a huge need. And with the percentage of special ed, there are some districts in our county that are at 18.
Yeah, I heard some of that.
Yeah.
So it's been really informative for me, so I appreciate it as well. And I understand that that's also one of the major causes that isn't funded, right? So it's not like we get these increased numbers and then we get appropriate funding to match that. We don't. Once a student gets that designation, when do they continuously get updates or tested again to see if they get undesignated or additional help or additional services, that kind of thing?
Yes. So every year, a student who has an IEP, we update it annually. So we look at the progress that they have made, if the services are still appropriate, and then we always look at goals. So when a student qualifies for special education, we develop goals that they need to work on, because we're always looking to, for lack of a better word, fill in the gap or be able to teach them strategies to compensate for what their disability is. And then every 3 years, we do a reassessment. So we make sure, because that's another thing where a student, it sounds odd, but a student might qualify for one disability. Sometimes we see that with autism, believe it or not, emotional disturbance. They might qualify for one disability during a certain time, and then when we assess, it might look a little bit different. That's also times where we look at if they are meeting their needs and they've improved significantly academically, that we look to exit them. So we look to,
transition. Thank you.
Twin, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, what kind of, are there any prevention strategies where we can put some money aside, maybe like if there's behavioral issues or socialization problems? So do we invest more money in TK or something else to try to mitigate the cost? Because it's always, interventions are always more expensive than prevention.
Right. Absolutely. So that is what, I referenced this before, but ed services and student services work very closely together. So this year we've been able to bring on an administrator that is looking at and helping us with the intervention and pre-referral. So that is one area. Another thing that we are working on and looking at is I discussed how we are implementing a social emotional curriculum. So we're looking at implementing that with students who aren't already identified for special education. That's one of the things that we're also doing. And then, again, with the behavior specialist, again, what we did this year, and I might have referenced it last year, we have behavior support assistants. So what we are working very hard is to make sure that we're updating their training and they have accurate training. So this year, we looked at how they were being utilized and how their distribution was. So this year, each site, especially at the elementary, have at least one BSA at their site. So the BSA will help support students who are already identified in special education that might have some behavior issues, but they're also available to help when there's crises at the elementary. And then we have a referral for if a teacher is struggling with behavior in their classroom, they can fill out a referral, and our BCBAs, our board certified behavior analysis, will come in and maybe give them some strategies like, oh, have you thought about positioning or however, or some kind of system. So that's what we're doing on our end to try to help.
Trustee Pacino.
For at least 20 or 25 years, we've been trying to address the increase in those kids who are become eligible under speech. It's an ongoing issue. So maybe we just need to give up the ghost and say, we have a lot of kids.
Well, and we might have a lot of kids. I mean, even when I talked about, we don't have students in residential, there are some kids that really, need the services. One thing with speech to always be kind of I'm aware of and I understand is students who might have autism, or they might be, if they're functioning very well in other areas, might be being identified only in speech. So they might have a different, like a medical diagnosis of autism, but under ed code or under what our guidelines are, they qualify differently. So that's some of our students that are speech only might have some.
I'm going to ask this and shoot me down, but is speech one of those things, back in the day we used to retain kids because it made us feel good. It was one thing that we could do. We knew that it didn't help, but it was like we didn't have anything else to do, and we knew that only 15% of kids who were retained it ever helped, but we had huge retention, lists. Mm-hmm. And then we finally figured out, no, we don't do that. Is speech one of those things that we do for kids and qualify them for speech because it's the one thing that maybe we can help them with?
I would hope that we don't qualify students who don't need it. I would hope. But
they need something else, but
right.
we really can't give them that something else, so we qualify them under speech. I don't know.
It could be.
Mm-hmm. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Trustee Good.
I'd just like to commend both you and your staff again.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, if you've been around for a while, it's hard to understand what a great job she and her staff have done since she joined our district. Because special education has always been a horrible mess. It's a large problem, and you continue to do a lot with very little. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, I have to commend my staff, even our office staff, all our assistants in there, everywhere works very hard. And then my husband just came in, so I have to thank him because I work all the time. So he has to pick up the slack a lot of times in other areas. So it takes a community. So I'm very thankful to be here, and we'll just keep trudging along. And I'll see you back here in June.
Like I said earlier tonight, leadership matters. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
We really appreciate everything you do. We appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll extend the commendation. Like sometimes you have to have been a while, but I've been here 1 year and I can already recognize that as well. So.
All right. Item D, monthly district cash flow update. Bring on some good news.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Flores, board members. So I'm just going to bring you up to date on our current cash flow. This cash flow spreadsheet is still based on the revised adopted that we did at the end of the year. We're currently working on first interim, so the next time I bring the cash flow to the board, it'll be based off of those numbers. Wow. So this spreadsheet is based on actuals from July all the way through the end of October. And so you'll notice that October, the beginning cash balance is a little over $13 million. And the cash that came in for that month is a little over 6.5. And our expenses and everything for that month, including payroll, a little over 10.4. And you'll see down there at the bottom that payroll alone, total compensation, total benefits for all employees is a little over 8.7, which is around 83% of all total expenditures for that month. We did not take out a tran this year. We're doing okay. We looked at everything and tried to do our best projection, and if we have to, we're able to borrow temporarily within some different funds, and we just replace that when the monies come in. So we're doing fine right now. Our ending cash balance for October is a little over 11.2, and we're projecting that November will be a little over 12.9. And this is just another way of looking at the chart. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see the cash flow is doing well. Any questions or comments? Okay.
And I just wanted to comment also on Anna Polito. It's been great working with her. Budget-wise, special ed, it is a big, whole different entity, and she's been great. So
nice. Okay, board policy revisions. First reading.
As you know, 5 times a year, we bring you CSBA's recommended policy changes, board policy changes. So this is on for first reading and your opportunity to raise any questions or make any comments you wish, and we'll respond. Each of us, just to remind you, when they come, Lucy distributes them to us by our department, and then we read them, and sometimes we talk to each other about them, and then we bring them to you. So there is a review process before it gets here.
I'm impressed. We're up to October 19. We're current.
We're current.
Good job, team. Any questions or discussion? Trustee Good.
I have a couple.
Okay.
Starting on page 22, BP 3515. Why are we deleting the board policy on campus security?
I'm going to have to get over there. Hang on.
This is 22 in your packet, not the new
page
22 from the...
It's the brand new.
Oh, it is the new one. Okay.
Page 22.
Campus security, BP 3515A. Business and non-instructional operations.
Sorry, I'm tired tonight. Where are you?
Page 22.
I'm
Why
on?
is it stricken?
The whole page?
The whole
Everything.
section.
The whole policy, everything. We don't care about campus security anymore.
Is that Alvaro? Unfortunately, Alvaro's not here.
Alvaro doesn't care about campus security.
No.
Somebody does
Put
it.
that in the minutes.
There is a logical answer to this,
Or
which I just don't
surveillance
have right now.
This is currently mystery. Okay. That's a question.
We'll get you the answer. We always get a cover page from CSBA. I'm sure there's a logical explanation because campus security is a major priority to us.
In the future, could we include the summary page?
Yes.
Okay, next one.
Or even for this one, for next time?
The next one on page 27.
Go ahead.
Page 27, the second paragraph, we're deleting teacher and we're substituting employee.
Because I'm assuming certificated, not only teachers?
Yeah, there are a lot of other positions like school psychologist, speech and language therapist. Did you do this one, Paul?
But it's the same language we have for teachers. Did they change the law?
No, employees requiring certification. So that is still the subset covered by
What
certification.
about
Everyone
a
who's
certified
certificated.
sewer technician? I mean, seriously.
Yeah,
I
these
bet
are-
you certification
These are
is defined
certified
as credentialing.
teachers requiring certification by the California
Employees
CTE. What's it called?
Yeah, I think it's.
Commission on
Teacher credentialing.
Teaching credential.
CTC.
I think it's misleading because when you go to page 33, it says a probationary employee who's been employed by district for 6
That's
months.
classified.
Well, I know, but I think we need to say that.
It does. At the top of that board policy, it's for classified, and at the top of this, it's for certificated.
Yeah, my guess is you're looking at the 4000 series, and usually 4100 is certificated.
4116.
Yeah, and 42.
4216.
Yeah, the 42 series is classified. So a lot of CSBA policy, you're going to find the exact same language in, let's say, 4100. You'll have a 4200 that's identical, except it changes the language as it pertains to classified only. You'll see things like probationary periods in the 4200 series. I don't know what you're looking at now. I know some recent changes were the 6-month period reduction. So if you're looking at that,
Because the state's interested in allowing local control. That's why they're going to require us to make an employee who was temporary before or not permanent 6 months earlier, because they want us to be in control of that.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm.
So it used to be local bargain, you're correct. It used to be up to a year, and our current CSE agreement does have that language. So we're going to have to update that. Now, it does say that we can wait until the successor agreement. So we'll talk with CSE about that. We did check in. That's classified across the board. So not only classified in CSEA, but also classified management as well. So that impacts all the 4200 series. It's a significant change in law.
Yeah.
That's pretty surprising.
Thank you.
Back to the certificated, I'm sure that change from teacher to employee is to capture all certificated employees.
You're seeing a trend right now.
Job titles.
Yeah, in CSBA, there's a very big trend that and even within CTA, that it's the California Teachers Association, but represents a very broad group of credentialed or certificated staff. So even within our own Gilroy Teachers Association, we have SLPs, psychologists, there's a number of staff members. So you're seeing a push within CSBA to recognize that the 4100 series really refers to anybody who is certificated either through EdCode or through licensure. So you're seeing a lot of change in language. Yeah, that's my guess.
Right.
I'm not looking at it, but if that's what you're referring
That has
to.
to be it.
Yeah, long time coming.
Next one I have is on page 43. Right in the center of the page, we have a bunch of language deleted, saying, oh, I take that back. This is addressed somewhere else, so never mind. I crossed that out. Forgot that I crossed it out. I asked why it was deleted, but it was just put in another policy.
Somewhere else. A lot of the changes are like that.
And the last one, 60, page 60.
Architectural and engineering services.
Yeah, why are we making this a board policy? It says we have to follow the law. Why don't we just follow the law? Why do we need a board policy?
You don't have to approve any of them.
I mean, it's just like when we were talking about some elements of the collective bargaining agreement, which recites code, which can be changed at the whim of the state, like, how long it takes to become a permanent employee. It just seems redundant and not a good idea to have board policy or collective bargaining agreements or any other things that we adopt that just recite what the law is.
Similarly, we don't have a board policy on murder, even though we're against it.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think that should become board policy.
Well, only in certain situations.
And this would have been one that Alvaro reviewed. I'd like to see what CSBA's comments were about this.
So that would just be my concern. I don't. Why do we keep adding to it when all it says is we're going to comply with the law?
Okay.
Could it be because they have their hand on the pulse and may see some changes coming, and that therefore they're just
you can never beat the law though.
Law always wins. If we have board policy that says black and the law says white,
yeah, that's
we
the only
lose.
reason I could think they're doing it. Yeah.
That's
Well,
all.
yeah,
all
I'll
the comments
send
I have.
you with my weekly report the comments from CSBA on each of these.
Thank
Just
you.
remind me.
And I'll include those.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks.
Anyone else? That was it, right, Mark?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments on these? So this is the first reading. We get to read them all over again for the next meeting.
With the cover sheet.
With the cover sheet will be coming in a Sunday report,
Yeah, I'll do
as
that.
well as being in the next packet.
I'll do that Sunday.
Okay. Thank you. This brings us to item 9. It's the monthly facilities maintenance and operations update, starring Mr. Nato and Mr. McAuliffe.
Good evening, Dr. Flores, President Pace, board members. Tonight we're going to present to you our monthly facilities and maintenance update.
I just said that.
What he just said.
Copying you.
Let's see. Tonight we have a few items for you. First, I'm going to cover what's going to happen or what's happening at Brownell. Then we'll move over to the Gilroy High School pool replacement project, and then the Gilroy High School portable removal project. Let's see. So this is a current snapshot. Actually, this is about a week old, but it hasn't changed too much. This is Brownell. You can see kind of a funky looking roadway in there. That's our fire road, and that we're going to utilize that over the winter as it rains to be able to place the foundations in the buildings. So we're solidifying all of that. In fact, at this point, that's all done. We're getting ready to start on our foundations, which is great. Earlier this week, we got our increment 2 drawings back from the DSA, fully approved, which is our trigger for the manufacturing of the building. So it's another milestone passed, and we're really excited about that. So that's where we are with Brownell. And let's see, we're moving on with the Gilroy High School pool replacement project. As you can see on the sides right now, what we've just completed is a 2-inch shotcrete around the edge to solidify us, to get us through the winter. If there's a lot of rain and softening of the ground, we don't want the walls to cave in. So we've shotcreted that out. If we were there today, you'd actually see the base is all filled with rock and layered out. We'll be doing cement work. We believe we're going to be able to actually cement in the pool, I think by the 3rd week of December, we're on target for that. So unless we have some ridiculous rains between now and then, we are looking really good on this schedule. Let's see. So after we do the concrete, then we'll actually be able to go in and work on the deck layer, which was, I think, how this whole project started.
I'm seeing the deck here.
One thing to note, in this project, there was a discovery of some asbestos-wrapped piping from the original pool that had to be abated and documented, which brings me to items 9B and C. We had the pipe excavated, wrapped, and documented, and brought to an approved facility.
Trustee Doyle, why did you use asbestos in there? Trustee Good?
Do they do any pressure testing or of the piping that's laid down here before they cover it with concrete?
Yes, they do. In fact, unfortunately, not in this particular shot. If we were able to see, see this pipe over here on the top? That's one of about 3 or 4 that are around the pool, and there's one currently with the valve still, the pressure valve still sitting on it. So they go through and they actually measure that for pressure treatment all the way through. I don't know the exact amount, but they overpressurize the system to make sure before they go in and bring or cover up all of this, that they get the pressures to pass. They also do it again after they lay down the base rock. So before they put cement in, they want to make sure that nothing has changed since that last activity. Those are all outfeeding pipes, so those are bringing water into the pool, and there's a whole set a different set that brings it out.
It's a nice looking peninsula.
It's hard to see in this 2-dimensional view, but yes, they're there, and it looks great. It looks so much bigger in person. So that'll bring us on to the Gilroy High School portable removal project. I have been dying to show you guys the current schematic. The colored section of this diagram indicates where the portables currently sit, and this is the architect's proposed rendering of what we want to do. So obviously the green area will represent turf and landscaping. The small gray semicircles are sitting areas and concrete walls for the students to be able to go out and congregate. There's also an athletic field pathway that goes along the left-hand side, also with some integrated seating in the on the left-hand side, those small yellow triangles. That's integrated concrete seating.
I was going to say, is that bad?
So with this project, I've been quite reluctant to discuss any dates for obvious reasons. But in light of recent concerns, I do want to let you know our plan is to actually start the destruction of these buildings on Monday. And
Monday of next week?
Monday of this next
Did
week.
you hear that, Dr. Flores?
Backpedal. Picture, and then I'll drive.
There you go.
I will be there Saturday, and I will be there on Monday. I will definitely send out photos confirming. We do have equipment that was staged today to start that work, so they'll be there over the weekend pulling out some of the ballasts, fluorescent tubes, and the Freon that could be left in any of those portables that that's like the last step, and then Monday morning they'll come in and do some destruction.
How
Very
long
exciting.
will it take to destroy them?
We're hoping to get them all done and out by Wednesday, by end of business Wednesday.
Thanksgiving
Something
miracle.
to be thankful for.
And just to orient myself, these are the math buildings that are there?
Buildings
Are
on
the
your right.
the white?
Okay.
That's the math building and the quad, and then this is where the old portables are, where the green is.
Okay.
And to the left is the student center.
Okay.
Cafeteria.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
And there's going to be a really cool place for kids to sit in between the student center and this.
Okay.
It'll be very, very nice.
Nice.
Yeah, it should accommodate quite a lot. We currently we still have power that's in. We have a power grid that's still going to exist in this area. I'm trying to look at alternatives to get it moved, which has been a big hang up on this project. But we've got that, and then we're planning also to put water and water bottle fillers out there as well.
Yay.
Great.
So yeah,
And those will be
fairly-
accessible during the day when the gates are locked?
I'm sorry?
Those will be accessible to students during the day?
Yes.
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
That'll be right outside the student center. So yeah, should be, and it's an easy crossway path into the math quad. Should increase visibility from the student center into the math quad. Even before this project is complete, we're hoping to be able to reduce the size of the gated fence to increase the visibility from the student center into the math area.
Nice.
And that's all I've got.
Hooray.
Good evening, Dr. Flores, President Pace, and board members. Tonight I have 5 action items for you and a brief update of our department. First item is a ratification with Architectural Systems Incorporated for additional fence and gates at the South Valley Fields. This was found to be necessary to secure the site. We had 4 areas of easy access to the campus, the back fields, with 4 gates that have been there for quite some time, or actually lack of gates, just open areas to the fence. And we discovered this with a walk with Dr. Flores, Principal Ramos. We discovered that the site is accessed quite easily and with unauthorized people using it on the weekends. We came up with a solution to build a corridor of fencing parallel to the fencing in front of the preschool, which allowed open access to the campus to go through the campus to get from Forest to IOOF. That's been a path of travel for decades, I think, through that school. So that still allowed foot traffic to go through there, but did not allow access onto the campus. Currently, there's 3 gates that have to remain locked. We do open them for bus traffic. There's several kids that come from that neighborhood to walk over to Murray Avenue. We open that up every morning and close it immediately after, and then open it up in the afternoon. It's been successful. We did have a lot of unauthorized use. We had homeless people camping out on the campus. We had a lot of activities. We had arson last summer out there. So this really was a big help in securing the site. That's a picture of it there. You can see the corridor that we built. We paralleled the ornamental fencing right in front of the preschool and added a double fire gate on the other end so fire equipment can access the site, the field there quite easily too. One thing that, in fact, conferring with Paul this morning about the fencing and the fencing needs of Brownell, a lot of this fencing can be repurposed. Once the new site takes place, we can reuse this at other sites and possibly on the campus of South Valley. We've actually talked about a few homes for it already, but it will serve a purpose for us for the next few years. Next one is also a contract with Architectural Systems, and this is to reconfigure the entrance to South Valley. That's a picture of South Valley currently, where you can easily walk right into the front office. Unless the door was locked, you'd walk right in. This has been a big concern of the site from last year, and then especially this year with the safety concerns. This has been presented to me as a concern by front office staff and admin several times. We initially brought this to the subcommittee to bring the fencing and gates that you see in the back there up to the front posts. And I did bring that to subcommittee. They did recommend to bring it to you for approval, but then when I told the site that's what we were doing, they requested that fencing stay, so we would add new gates and another panel with a buzz-in system, so you could walk into the entry foyer there, but you'd have to go through the front door. You couldn't access the rest of the campus, and that made perfect sense. So we had to go back to subcommittee with the revised bid, and the cost of that, it's $20,431.
Can that fencing be used?
Yes, it can.
Again,
yes,
elsewhere?
especially the gate hardware, the gate components themselves, the hinges, those are expensive components of fencing. The panels can be reused quite easily, so we can definitely repurpose this material.
So at other sites, the office is separated?
This is very similar. They've asked what we did at Brownell. It's very similar to Brownell, except Brownell doesn't have the secondary fencing to prevent access to the rest of the campus. And Mount Madonna also has a buzz-in system, and this is the same contractor that did both of those schools.
Yes, I realize we have a combination of office accesses, right? Like, so some of them have access just like this one is currently, and then some of them are like Brownell and
Yeah, we have sites, Elliott has had concerns about easy access to the front of their school. They have had.
So we haven't gone to like a uniform policy for the district,
No.
but just on a one-off.
Well, it sounds like we are going to a policy. We're not implementing it everywhere, but future.
We're trying to address access control issues the best way, the most economically that we can.
At the schools where safety issues are prominent.
Yeah, and they have had issues with people undesirables walking right in the front office, and I mean, Anisha, I'm sure, can attest to that.
And I would assume the price went down with, the estimate went down when that fence wasn't going to be removed, that back fence wasn't.
No,
gonna
it was
be-
actually less when we were going to just relocate the existing fencing in the back.
Oh, because you were going to reuse it?
You were going to bring that forward?
Oh, I see. Okay.
It was just going to come up and be.
Okay. Okay.
Why couldn't you just put a buzzer on the door?
We could do that also. A door latch type buzz-in system is a little more intricate. That would be a different type system on that type of strike assembly. We could do that also.
The only concern I have about that, I don't know if you remember in the Connecticut school shooting, they had a similar design where you buzzed in. I think the idea is, and maybe we should talk to the officer at GPD who has all that specialized training. SEPTED. The idea is to remove, let's say it was a shooter, have them buzzing in out here rather than right at the door where they could potentially shoot.
We also have glass on both sides.
Mike?
So you can get the shatterproof glass, because I know we had
Mike.
these conversations with
Anisha.
Mike?
Turn on your mic.
Sorry. The glass on both sides, that would need to be replaced as well. And I remember we got an estimate for that. It was pretty expensive.
I recall that. That was quite expensive.
And when we put the fence, we had these conversations, but I think it was access. The other thing is the after-school programs. So there was some issue, and I remember that's why we didn't move the fence out at that time.
Trustee Pacino?
The issue with Connecticut, that was the Sandy Hook one, is it wouldn't have mattered what they had because they allowed him in because they knew him.
No, that's true.
He didn't push his way in. They knew who he was and they buzzed him in.
The only thing I remember from our previous discussions with that officer was the further away you could have the buzz in from the actual door, it gives you a little bit of
time.
Time. It's all about time. It's not going to stop somebody that really is determined, like that shooter, to get into the school. It just slows them down, gives us more time to call for help.
Trustee Diaz?
Just for curiosity, what would be the cost of moving of the original estimate, how you guys
That
wanted
was
it?
$14,000.
Okay. Not
Give and take a little
So-
bit of change.
In talking with the staff, have we talked about disruption to work? I mean, just remembering the flow of traffic during the
we
day?
followed their request. They actually wanted the fencing relocated and the front more secure.
Right.
Just so they couldn't have an issue with undesirable people congregating in front of the admin. That's every time I visit that school, the front office staff ask me about this and where we're at.
It's basically, if you have 100 and some people coming into the school, that means you have to get out of your seat, go and check who's at the door, and allow them in.
Camera.
The camera at Buzzin's been very successful at Mount
Okay.
Madonna and Brownell. I have not had any negative
You just
feedback.
buzz them in.
Other than when it goes down, they want it back up immediately.
They can see them. They can see.
So,
them.
yeah, so we'd have to install
So a
them.
camera.
Yes, and I'm assuming.
Is there one there now, or that's?
No, this is a separate, this is not on the security system camera. It would be a separate camera that just views that front gate.
And this includes, that 20,000
Yes,
includes that?
yes.
I mean, I assume.
The only thing that we have to provide is an electrical outlet, which is a very simple thing for our district electrician. The power's right there.
Trustee Good, did you?
Yeah, so I understand that you're taking direction, so I'm not blaming you, Dan, but I'm a little perturbed that the $30,000 fence on the school that's been there for over half a century is a ratification.
Well, there were a lot of safety concerns being expressed to us about strangers walking through.
And so
the
what's
campus.
changed? What's changed so recently over contra the last 50 years that we had to spend $30,000 and make it a ratification?
20.
Concerns from the site about the traffic through the campus.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I have an issue with that. And then secondly, what you're proposing to do here is exactly what you do. It's a jail sally port. And if that's the way you want to go, great. But I have another problem with spending $30,000 on the ratification, spending $20,000 on this. It's not the end of it. We've already heard we're going to have to put in a camera. You said the camera's included. There's probably going to have to be some audio so they can talk to people, right?
Yeah, that's part of the interaction. It's audio video.
And then we may be tearing this thing down in a couple of years.
We'll use every piece of this that we can. And I've been reassured that we can use
The
these
buzzing
parts.
system we can repurpose at another site. I'm sure we have other sites that would
Because
welcome it.
we could wait another 4 years. South Valley will not be, the project won't be done for 4 years. So in the meantime, the campus safety is compromised, and that always comes first to me, is kids and staff being safe on a campus, and they've consistently, we go out there to do a walkthrough for another purpose, and we saw it. We got to see this person walking right through the campus and then argued with the principal about getting off the campus right in front of us. And that happens all the time there because they want a shortcut from one side of the campus to IOOF, and they were cutting through three or four different locations,
four
and we were
access
standing there watching this.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not an issue. The point is, the school's been there for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that all of a sudden it's an emergency and we need to spend the money before requesting board
I
approval.
think we're in different times. We've had 18 school shootings this school year. I think we're in totally different times. Safety is a high priority right now. And when I visit sites, I hear that from our staff. And in some of our schools, it's a bigger issue.
Yes, and you could do a lot of things with safety that we're not doing. You could have an armed police officer at every school site. But safety is important. I mean, you can carry that argument as far as you want to, is my point.
I'm going to argue for safety.
Trustee Pacino?
So, Mark, what I hear you say is not necessarily against the project, but the ratification, that it could have waited a month.
Absolutely.
And come to the board. A month wouldn't have made that much difference. Am I hearing that?
We used to do a lot of ratifications, and the board, there was serious pushback from the board to knock that off because staff was making decisions on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of project. And I see this as an example of something I don't want to see.
Sure.
It should be board decisions.
The board was, three of you were there representing you at the committee meeting when we discussed it.
And we've had discussions about the facilities committee not making decisions.
Three is not four.
Without the consent and approval of the board. That's a problem. This is the first time we've had this discussion.
I hear what you're saying.
I, on the other hand, do think that the times are different. And I think this is staff, front office staff there that's making a request for safety. And that's kind of where it falls in for me as well, that if they're requesting something that falls under safety, we should do what we can to
Sure,
appease
but
them.
the fact is, they've been asking for this for probably 2 years. Or more.
Yeah.
And
I think
so,
we all want
so it's
to
about
avoid
the
ratification.
issue. And that's on us, those of us who are on the
I agree.
committee.
Ratifications are something to only be used when necessary.
So thank you, Mark, for reeling us in once again. And I think it's a good point that we pay attention to ratifications and that make them truly emergency.
Can somebody explain the ratification that happened, or is it occurring?
So ratification means the deal is done.
It's already done.
And now we're
Already
paying
done.
the, we have to
Oh, I
cut the
see.
check.
In other words, if you decided, if the board had decided, nah, we don't want to spend $30,000 for that, tough. It's already been spent.
Okay.
I think we're all in favor of it. It's the process that we're dealing with.
Right. It's good to hear that this material will be reusable. That's an important aspect of this as well. So continue, please.
Take care.
Poor Dan.
I preface it with Dan's just doing what
not
people
his-
tell him to do.
Yep.
This isn't a Dan issue. This is a
This is a
board,
board issue.
and a process issue.
I agree.
Yes.
Thank you. Next one, another contract with ASI, Architectural Systems. We've got an issue at Rod Kelly with the parking lot that accesses the library, the first parking lot as you come in on the right-hand side of the campus. After hours, there's been a lot of issues with vehicles coming in there, kids having parties, leaving paraphernalia behind, garbage, litter. PD's been out many, many times, and the recommendation was to put gates and some lighting out there. Running power for electrical for lighting is a big challenge. That's very expensive. We have put motion detected solar lights out there. I'm not sure how effective they are, but they do add some light when there is motion. But the real solution is to put the typical A-frame gates that we've put out at ADB, Elliott, Glenview has them. Quite a few of our sites have these type of gates, and that could be locked up by the night custodian, opened up by the day custodian. But that would prevent cars accessing that dark parking lot and hiding in that little corner. So the cost of that is $8,700. ASI has installed, I think, every A-frame gate for us around the district since I've been here. Next one is
Actually, Dan, I'm sorry. I want to loop back to South Valley here. Looking a little more closely, item D is not a ratification. Is that
No, it is
correct?
not. No, it is
okay,
not.
so that one is an approval. So
Yes.
we could have a different discussion now about that. The F.
And Dan was conspicuously silent during that discussion.
F.
I'm sorry.
F is
That
a
is not
ratification.
That is not a ratification. I'm
And
sorry.
that was the one where we have people wandering through
Yes.
campus
That is,
arguing with the principal.
that is a ratification, the $30,000 additional fencing and gates on the back large fields.
So that one
Between Murray
felt
and
to be
Forest.
an imminent security, more imminent security issue because there are people actively arguing with staff and stuff.
Yes.
So the front gate, maybe we should talk about that now as, do we want this? Because we can have that discussion now.
One more question on that one. It's going to be like a passageway between.
It is already.
It's already
It's
done.
already
That one's
there.
done.
Okay.
It's this.
And that one is.
And that's the ratification because that's done.
This is open. You can actually walk through here.
A lot of
You can access
weirdos.
this right in front of the preschool.
But that
walk
Jim
down
called.
this corridor.
That's the ones that Jim called the stroller people. Right? This is the pipeline there.
Go between the tennis
Lot more
courts
than
and
Okay.
the South Valley campus. It's also a corridor that's lined with chain link fencing. So they can, this neighborhood is used to.
And it's meant to be there. But
Yes,
yeah,
it's
okay,
meant to be
okay.
there.
Yeah.
I don't, but it's been there for.
Because otherwise people
decades.
would jump
They've been able
fences,
to
yeah.
access that, go from
Yeah.
Forest
Used to be traffic going through, do you remember?
Walk
I
right.
should be able to drive through it. Probably drove through my patrol car.
I remember when it was totally open and they would go through the middle of the
Yeah,
school.
and they did follow that
Yeah.
corridor, but we occasionally had people going out on the fields and doing things they shouldn't. And we still have soccer groups and whatnot on weekends. They've cut our locks twice to get out there in the last few weekends, so we've got to do a better job of watching who's going out there.
Okay, so let's have a discussion about the front gate at South Valley. Now that it's an approval, not a ratification, it is not a fait accompli. So,
I didn't have any confusion. I knew that 30,000 was a ratification and this was an approval.
Okay.
That's why
Sorry.
I said $30,000.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have said 50.
Thank you. Okay, but I was confused, so.
I'm sorry for that.
Perhaps
Is there
someone
any
else
more I
was.
can clarify on the front gate entrance, or?
No, we're
any
just
more
hopeless.
information?
Most importantly, facilities is not in trouble for this one specifically.
Correct.
We didn't spend the money.
Yeah, we didn't set them up for this one.
Okay.
So the Rod Kelly gates, that's an action item. The next one is a contract with EF&S for some sidewalk improvements at Solorzano. Right now, currently, the sidewalk coming off Grenache terminates right here, does not turn back onto the campus. And this was really evident when we were directing traffic out there earlier in the year, what a hazard this is. The kids walking in or out cut through here. They don't follow the path here. They cut through, and the bike path is also cutting through here, while traffic, the pickup and drop-off is going through this parking lot. It's an extremely dangerous conflict. The first day I directed traffic out there, that was my biggest concern. I actually stood in the corner just to stop the kids from going out into the path of traffic. So what we're proposing is this sidewalk will now turn. Pretty much this whole peninsula here will be sidewalk with an ADA ramp added here and here, and also a gate out to the basketball courts. While we were out there directing traffic, the city traffic engineers were also present, and they thought this was a good idea and absolutely necessary to do to protect the students. So if this is approved, this will be done next week. At a cost of $22,400.
Is an option to close off that entrance?
No.
I mean, there's another entrance further down.
Oh, God.
I know that's
the main path of travel for drop-off and pickup.
but there's another entrance right after that.
They've tried all kinds of things over the years. This is.
I mean, that's a weird parking lot in general, how it ends, like in a weird way. It doesn't give you a really clean exit, but
There
I mean,
there isn't a great solution. Some of us spent 7 to 10 days out there every day and watched this in action. When Valley Bunyan opens, we have so many more options available to us, but right now this is it. We can do other things. We spent a lot of time talking about this when we were out there.
Yeah.
But Valley Bunyan is imminent, right?
Isn't it? Yeah.
We don't know when it's going to open.
I mean, those houses are selling.
No, it's not open yet. They have not turned it over to
They have
the
open
city.
houses.
We've asked
They have open
regularly.
house already.
They will within
But
a
when
couple
it
months.
opens, we can look at the city traffic engineers. We're out there with us brainstorming, and they're happy to help us review the whole situation when we have another road coming in and out. But right now, and we've spent a lot of time on this, this is the best way for drop-off and pickup. And it's not ideal, but
guess-
it works.
When Valley Bunyan is open, will people still be here, or are we wasting this money?
We'll use this and Valley Bunyan.
Okay.
I was going to say,
Thank
I
you.
don't see it.
It's an and, not an or.
It's an and.
Understand your question.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll still need this.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I
I
think
like-
this was a flaw in the original design of the
Definitely.
pickup and drop off and the travel into the site. I don't think this ever worked well. One thing I forgot to mention, that we will be adding bollards to prevent any traffic from getting up on the sidewalk along this road. This pathway.
We observed some really bad behavior.
Extremely bad behavior.
Sometimes you need
Drivers.
to get your kid. Oh, wait, no.
It was
I
scary.
don't have a kid.
Paul had his foot run over. I was almost hit a couple times.
Yeah, I
Just-
almost got hit a few
yeah,
times.
Can't be late to school, Dan. Get out of my way.
Pretty passionate group of drivers out there.
Dan, will that tree survive?
That tree will go.
Okay.
And
So where are we putting two other
are
trees?
looking at next to near the gym.
Okay.
Replacing a tree.
Two of them, right?
Two of them. Thank you. Two for one. 2 for 1.
Okay, I'm sorry, go back one. So we're putting sidewalk here on the right?
Yeah, sidewalk here.
Okay.
Concrete peninsula there will basically become a sidewalk.
And the fence will move inside so that that is on the outside.
The students have immediate access to the playground,
Yes.
all the basketball courts, yeah. And the only
Right
thing
now, they use that double gate to access. We watched the coaches do that several times. If a ball went over, they had to open up that big double gate.
And so it's like students cycling, I mean, they'd have the same access, but where is their bike rack at? It's on the outside.
Shows that to be an access point. They
Okay.
could definitely use it. There'll be an ADA ramp going out to the basketball courts, and then one coming across. We're creating a new crosswalk right in front of
And
that
ADA compliance
double
is
traffic,
fantastic,
or double gate there.
A comment Trustee Diaz just brought up about the bike paths. So as this pathway is kind of, it just truncates where walkers and bikers just end up in the traffic. I did talk to the principal about the bike program that Specialized had already put in. You can barely see it. The bikes are stored back here, and we're talking about cleaning up that container and also repurposing one of the other containers up in this general area so students can drop off their bikes, park them inside the containers, lock them up, and they're good for the day. Nice. So we're currently working through some of that plans, but that pathway will create a new path for the students to get in. And I think once it catches on, it's going to be a very preferred path to get into the campus.
Encourages bike transportation to campus. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item for approval is a contract with Gary Gokel for the Christopher High Pool Variable Frequency Drive. Thank you. It's been a long day. I might have to call on E.C. Doyle for some expertise on this. This was put in several years ago. It's basically an energy saver for us. It varies the speed that the pumps are used at the main pool at Christopher High. The one we have now is failing. It's lived its life. They last about 6 to 8 years. It's functioning right now, but it's intermittent. We're going to lose it at any time. So Gary was the original installer of the VFDs at Christopher and Gilroy High School. Unfortunately, the one that is in Gilroy High School, cannot be used at Christopher High. It's a different voltage. But Gary is recommending a different brand than what is there. It's actually cheaper than what is existing by $2,000. He can have this to us in about 3 weeks if approved.
And this is not actually a pump, it's something different?
It regulates the speed of what the pumps are functioning at on demand.
It's like
so
an electronic...
in the evenings when there's no real essential use, it's a much slower speed.
Is it like an electronic box? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a solenoid, yeah.
Because for residential pools, you buy variable speed pumps. But it's all one integrated unit. This is just separate.
Yes.
Separate unit. Gotcha.
Yes.
So how much does this save us?
You need it to lower, go up for usage and non-usage
And time of day.
Saves us money.
Okay.
So how much does
I'm
it
not
save
Cheryl,
us?
but I recall $40,000 a year.
Okay,
savings.
sounds good.
Does that sound about right? Does that sound about right? About $40,000 a year?
Is it one controller controlling one pump, or is it multiple pumps? I imagine we have multiple pumps. Is it just one pump?
Yeah, this is for the main pool, if I
Yes.
understand.
Yes,
And
not
that
the
has one
activity.
pump.
Okay.
Now, the city has 2 pumps, one to circulate the water and the other one to operate the,
Filtration, yeah.
the toys.
Oh.
that they have. So,
Yeah.
and the one that operates the toys doesn't need a variable speed on it because it's just turned on and turned off. But the 2 that run, you do the constant when there's being used, are variable for like at night when it's not being used. It brings the voltage, the pump slows way down to the minimum that we can do. And it does save us a bunch of money.
Yeah, that's also
Not only on
useful.
electricity, but on water,
Yeah.
chemicals, gas, everything.
Thank you. Good point, Trustee Doyle. Brief update, maintenance, Veterans Day, or like any other day where we do not have students or staff, we try to do as much as we can. Fortunately, Veterans Day, we were able to complete, thank you, Cheryl, the last of Prop 39. We put 2 new HVAC units on top of the Rod Kelly kinder classrooms. That was completed. We had to wait a while till we had a window with no kids because we had to have a big crane out there to boom them on the roof. Also, many of our fire systems had their annual testing and just some basic services over that day, including an Ansel system at the culinary kitchen at Gilroy High. Thanksgiving week work, if approved, the Solorzano sidewalk will be done. The El Roble driveway and concrete improvements will be done, already board approved. Trees at Mount Madonna High School and Solorzano, the large oak, the board approved items will be done. We also are continuing on with our fire service, both wet and dry. We're doing Christopher High School 100%. Every device on the site will be tested in the next several days, starting Saturday, and be done over the holiday. One thing I'm really happy to show you, this was Glenview prior to the asphalt work being done. This is one section. I wish I could have attached the video. One of our grounds guys, where that orange cone was, took a blower, one of our garden landscape blowers, and actually lifted the top layer of asphalt about a foot off the ground, about 3 feet back. And that turned out...
Good blowers.
That's what I blow. That turned out to be several layers of asphalt. It was... there was no chance that we could have resurfaced that one more time. It definitely had to come out completely. So there you see, it came out completely with the cooperation of the site the principal. I have to thank her very much. We were able to do this in one phase. We had this planned for 3 phases and weekend work. So once we got the green light to do it all in one phase, Joe from EF&S brought in extra equipment and extra resources and knocked this out really quick. You can see the asphalt in one lift getting installed. I wanted to get you a finished product picture with the painted lines, but after completion, every time I went out there, there were so many kids on the playground I couldn't take a picture. They loved this. They were having so much fun out there. It made a huge improvement, and I'm so thankful we got this done because that was an accident waiting to happen.
That's good.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the report and introduction of the items. If there's no objection, I will entertain a motion on the items B through H.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, board member reports. And remember, we're going back to closed session.
I'll make it real quick.
No, please.
So I met with, I think it was Washington Health Clinic last week, and I did not realize that they actually have a clinic on South Valley. And it's a free health clinic for communities and family.
Okay.
So that was...
There for years.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize that, so it was nice to...
In fact, we've met with them in the past few months because we want to make sure they know we're rebuilding.
Yes.
And that they don't have to find a new location.
Yeah, because they thought it was going to be next year that they had to relocate. I'm like, I don't
No, we
think
met
so.
with them. Alvaro was very clear about the construction schedule. We are giving them, I think, 2 years' notice. I think we already did it.
Okay.
Be nice to find them another location.
There's a possibility at another site in the district because we have spades. We did mention that to them.
Perfect.
Great. Anyone else? All right.
Did she look?
Upcoming and new referral agenda items. Going once. Trustee Diaz?
I just have something to mention. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about special ed and anxiety and stress, and it's not just related with students, but I think staff can be affected as well. And so it's just something to throw out there if we've ever thought. I know we do in-service days for teachers and teach them, have teaching topics, but mental health and anxiety and
The
other
UCSF thing you mentioned, that was staff, right?
Just wellness programs in general, frankly. Wellness programs in general is kind of something that I've had in mind, and just kind of throwing it out there.
I think there was something on our recent staff development days.
We have a strand on every staff development.
Yeah, I sent that, the PD schedule to you, I think about 3 weeks ago, but I think I've seen a strand on mental health regularly in our PD. Today was for staff.
All right. Next up, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Thursday, December 12th. Closed session will begin at 5:30. The annual reorganization and regular meeting at 7. The agenda will be available on the Friday before. And because it is necessary, the board will adjourn to closed session to continue the discussion of items in Section 2 above. We are adjourned to closed session.